babe, wanna leave this town.
Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode number 46, I believe, with myself, David, and Mr. Oliver Wilson. Ollie's given me the slit throat signal to suggest it's not 46. Go on then, what's the number then, Wilson?
Well, surely it's 45.5 because this is a unofficial bonus podcast rather than a set-in-stone episode, I'd say. This is like a bite-sized chunk more than anything else. This isn't the full NASP experience that people are going to get here.
I mean, where are the sponsors, Ollie? We're literally overproducing in terms of content with these bonus pods. And it is the first bonus pod in nearly a year of doing Not Another Sports Pod, and it can only be because of Mr. Ange Postecoglou. Should we dive straight in? No intros, no hellos, no how are yous, Ollie. We're both alive and well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Europa League final was so bad that people from other countries, my mates in Germany and Italy, were messaging me and saying, this is so bad. That's how bad the quality was in the Europa League final. And it doesn't matter in the fullness of time. Nobody cares. It's completely irrelevant. But at the same time, you were watching a European final with an astonishingly low bar to entry. And all that any neutral could do is look at that final and think both of these two football clubs need 6 or 7 new players in their starting 11. It was that poor. But you know what? Football's about winners, Ollie. It doesn't matter. And Mr. Ange Postecoglou has gone and done it, hasn't he? I mean, he's...
Well, it does matter to some extent because I live in the world where I've had to listen for so many years. People having a pop at that Champions League final between Milan and Juventus. And, you know, I got absolutely hammered by people that didn't like Italian football at that point. That was the worst ever Champions League.
2003 or something? Or...
Yeah, 04, I think it was,
Okay.
yeah. And I was always like, but it was great in terms of tension, because if you're invested in it, it doesn't matter if it's a bad final, it's the tension. But the outside look is, Italian football's rubbish, it didn't produce any attacking football, etc., etc. Well, now we have a European competition, 2 Premier League sides in it. And let's face it, like, Tottenham-Liverpool in the Champions League final a few years ago wasn't exactly a barnstormer when we had 2 English sides in it. We come from, obviously, working on South American football, where we've always said the worst thing that can happen is have 2 Brazilian sides in the Libertadores final because it gets cagier, they know each other better, it makes for a worse game. And we've had it again, and people were going, well, it's 2 Premier League sides in the Europa League final. Doesn't that show the power and prowess? And it more shows that, I don't know, I mean, it shows, as you say, how bad these 2 sides have been this season more than anything else. But yeah, I found it a little bit of a comeuppance for people that had always slagged off other, it's rubbish when it's 2 Italian teams, it's rubbish when it's 2 Spanish teams. Well, it's bloody rubbish when it's 2 English sides that are as bad as this. I mean, I didn't watch it, and I missed nothing. I missed nothing from missing that final. All I got was reactionary comments from people.
Not true, Ollie. You missed the spectacle. You did miss something. Even when football is dull as dishwater, you definitely missed something, because it was astonishing how bad it was. You missed a man whose footballing philosophy is so front foot, is so high press, is so open, it's so are you not entertained, suddenly decide in a final to abandon every philosophical bone in his body and just go 2 banks of 4. It was almost a flat 5 in the midfield. What we have, we hold 30% possession. Right, let's dig in and get a scrappy 1-0. And you can take that in any way you want. Look, ultimately, Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham won the trophy, so he's a genius. But equally, it was quite astonishing to watch a man go from being the most attack-minded manager in the Premier League to, like, peak Mourinho in a final. It's quite something to watch a man abandon his entire philosophy.
Do you look down on him for it? Because
no.
I kind of like the idea. I imagine there were so many Tottenham fans going into that game worried that they would overcommit, over-attack. And, you look what United did against Lyon when the French side kind of overcommitted and allowed United to get in behind on too many occasions, and that kept United in that game. Tottenham fans must have been absolutely bricking themselves. And instead, what they got is what they'd asked for all year, which was like organised defensive discipline. And I don't think they enjoyed it either. I mean, they've enjoyed the victory, but there was I spoke to a Tottenham fan yesterday who was saying, I took less enjoyment from winning that final than I did from watching them lose the Champions League final, because I want to see Tottenham.
Absolute nonsense, Ollie. Who are you talking to have that opinion? That is the 0.0001% of Tottenham fans that would say that. Wait, repeat that again, because your mate needs to be, I'm going to say it, put down. Like, that is a disgraceful comment. If you're listening, does he listen to this? He or she listen to this podcast?
I don't know, actually. He might do, yeah.
Well, please clip this up and send it to them, because I'm calling that person out, mate. They actually said they preferred losing the 2019 Champions League final to winning the Europa League in 2025.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Right.
It's a less enjoyment of it, because apparently they want to see their side playing and competing and winning trophies against the best, and he doesn't feel like that has happened this year, which you're never going to have in the Europa League, because it's the sodding Europa League and you're not getting the drip down from the Champions League anymore, so it's not going to be the best. But I think the lack of quality coming through in the final just kind of summed it up, that it's winning a trophy, but I don't feel like we've done anything that special. And it's a weird take, but I'm just saying there are some people as well that agree with him.
Let's give Tottenham their flowers then, and I want to talk about how winning this Europa League, Tottenham winning the Europa League, could genuinely change the course of their future forever. It could change their reputation forever. Now, everyone knows the Spursy tag, right? Lads, it's Tottenham, this kind of thing. That has now gone. They've won a European final. They've won an absolute crunch game against Manchester United Football Club. So that tag, that label, can no longer be applied upon them. And that's huge. That is a weight off the shoulders not to have that, right? This is their first European trophy since 1984, first trophy in 17 years. I would argue, though, Ollie, because it's not just a trophy, because it's an entry into the Champions League, because it's 100 million quid, because the stakes are so high in terms of financial revenue, I would argue this is was the biggest night in Tottenham's history and the biggest day and the most important event since they last won the league, and I think it was 1961. I would argue, forget the FA Cups, forget the previous European triumphs, because of what this means, I would argue it's the most important day. You also chuck in the fact that they're going to be in the European Super Cup against PSG or Inter in August. There's a chance for more silverware. Their stadium is a stadium for the next 100 years, right? That Tottenham and Daniel Levy, like Daniel Levy put so much into that, because Tottenham Stadium is a stadium for the next 100 years of the football club. Set in stone, sorted in London, can host other events. They're a London club. They should be able to attract the biggest talent. This is an inflection point in history for them. And this could propel Tottenham right up to the top of the summit of English football.
That's a big could. That's a big if. It's definitely not that easy. What it is, I agree with so many of those points. It's the opportunity of the UEFA Super Cup, which, as you say, it's a piece of silverware. It's a piece of continental silverware, if they win it. Again, a big if. It's a big trophy in the brand new trophy cabinet at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is an incredible stadium, and they finally have a trophy going into it that is befitting the arena that they've created. It's a big momentum boost being in the Champions League. Obviously, it's a big financial boost, and it's a big draw for players to potentially bring in. The summer window looks so much better for Tottenham Hotspur if they're willing to spend some money. And that's another big if. To be propelled, though, to the top of the Premier League and be fighting for a top 5, considering what we've seen from this year. And I know they've had injury problems, particularly on the back end of the season, but that's a bigger if. And I think that in a Premier League, which the last time we spoke, Dave, we were talking about how it's easier to win a Europa League than it is to fight for the top 5 in the Premier League. That's a huge if for Tottenham. And I don't think this sets them up for that enough to make it a guarantee, particularly with what we've seen from the manager in the way that he won this final, and the manager in what we've seen from the last 18 months, 2 years of football. And again, who knows if Ange Postecoglou is going to be sticking around or not. I don't think it will be, obviously. Let's
talk about Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, I want him to stick around, so the Ange Avenue, the Postecoglou pod pathway, like I can keep talking about it on pod. Look. Okay, let's put the arguments for and against. The argument for Ange Postecoglou staying at Tottenham Hotspur is that they've won their first trophy in 17 years, their first European trophy since 1984. They have... Let me start that again. The argument for Ange Postecoglou staying at Tottenham is that he has delivered their first trophy in 17 years, their first European trophy since 1984. He's delivered one of the biggest nights in the football club's history, and he's done it in a way that shows an incredible flexibility in terms of himself as a tactician to park his ideas as a philosopher and an attacking maverick to be like a stoic defensive Dow winner. So that's the argument for keeping Ange Postecoglou, right? The man does exactly what he says he was going to do. The argument against Ange Postecoglou is that, look at the Premier League table. Tottenham have lost 21 Premier League games this season. In a host of other Premier League seasons, Tottenham would be in a genuine relegation battle, a relegation dogfight. Like, their Premier League form is a disgrace. Like, it is an absolute disgrace. Injuries or not, that is a disgrace for Tottenham to be one place above the relegation zone. A disgrace. You can't ignore that. And for the Tottenham hierarchy, I think they will look at this, and there's an emotional side to everyone's brain, and there's a logical side to everyone's brain. The emotional side is you keep Ange, right? He's the winner. He's delivered. He's the meme-tastic, like, winner and icon of the football club now. But the logical side is, thank you very much, Ange, but ultimately, as a Premier League manager, you ain't it. And we're going to now take our position with the fact that we've got Champions League football, the fact that we've got this stadium, the fact that we've got silverware, we've got a feel-good factor around the football club, and we're going to bring in a Max Allegri, a Marco Silva, a Thomas Frank. So those are the two arguments. That's the for and against keep, Ange staying or going. Where do you stand? Let's put you, Ollie. Well, let's say you are top of Tottenham Football Club. You're the chairman. What are you doing?
Well, part of your for argument is the flexibility as a tactician. And considering, I don't think you can call him a flexible tactician when he has been flexible once. Yes, on the biggest night and on the most important night. But, it's... Yeah, that's not being a flexible tactician. That is, sod it. Just hold on, boys. Hold on for dear life. But I get what you're saying for the other points of it. I don't see Ange Postecoglou being there next season. I don't think you can stick around because Europa League, it's more of an 800-meter now than a sprint, but it's not the marathon.
Bless you.
I'm just allergic to the idea of Ange Postecoglou not being in the Premier League, I think. It's a horrible one because I've enjoyed his presence so much, but I just don't think you can look past what has been a disastrous league campaign and what's been 2 pretty poor years under Ange Postecoglou for Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. And
that's a brave call, though, Ollie.
But that has to be the bigger picture. That has to be the bigger picture because it's a negative atmosphere and relationship between the triangle between club, manager and supporters isn't all linking up correctly, I don't think, at Tottenham in terms of a feel-good factor, even with this trophy and with this victory. And the fans don't like Levy. The fans haven't been happy with Postecoglou. Postecoglou hasn't been happy with the fans. I mean, that point last season before the City game was a huge turning point in that relationship. In Ange Postecoglou seeing what Tottenham fans kind of really thought and that attitude around Tottenham of we don't care if we lose as long as Arsenal don't win, which is a second-class attitude at the end of the day, I think.
I rated it personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it. I want to see my football team win at any point. I don't care what other side's doing. But anyway, yeah, and I think Ange saw it that way as well. And I think since then, the writing's kind of been on the wall. And then you have this season to back that up. It's just not good enough at the end of the day. And I don't see how Daniel Levy would give Ange Postecoglou the financial resources to go and maybe change the side to bring in personnel that would allow his style of football. I don't see Ange changing the style of football that we've seen from the majority of his time at Tottenham Hotspur. So that's not really going to change, even if this was the way they had to win a Europa League final. So I think Tottenham do end up looking elsewhere. And to be honest, I think it's a better move for Ange Postecoglou because I don't think Tottenham's a great fit for him either. You know, the dressing room, I've heard a number of people say that behind the scenes, it seems like the players do really like him and get on with him and respect him.
Yeah, because everyone loves the supply teacher.
But if the results aren't there, then I'm sorry, but it can't stay that way, regardless of what the players think. And you maybe need somebody to come in who's going to be a bit more, I don't know if it's tough love or just
All right,
I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Let me read some names out, and you tell me who you think that's the best fit then in terms of the bookies. Thomas Frank, De Zerbi, Marco Silva, Iraola, Scott Parker, Pochettino, Simone Inzaghi, you're never getting him. Una Emery's never going.
Why wouldn't they get Simone Inzaghi?
Say again?
Why wouldn't they get Simone Inzaghi? If Inzaghi wins the Champions League with Inter, well, I don't think he should go, but I would think Tottenham would be able to lure financially and with living in London, especially if Inzaghi won a Champions League this year. If he won a Champions League, you walk out of Inter as the successful manager since Mourinho, right? It's very hard to go back to the top of the mountain once you've reached it. I
mean, that would be coup of the decade.
It'd be a great acquisition.
That's a top European manager. I think that would be coup of the decade. But the only
who
way
isn't
that
cost
happens,
you
as you say,
as much as some of those.
If
it's not going to cost as much.
Yeah, I mean, if Inzaghi wins the Champions League with Inter, as you say, and then his mentality is, I've done it all, what's my next step? And then to go to the Premier League with a big London club. I mean, yeah, but if you're Inzaghi also, why not sign another 5-year contract with Inter Milan? You know, I missed out Diego Simeone in that list as well. You don't like a Thomas Frank or a Marco Silva?
I could see Marco Silva maybe, but it's not. The trouble is we heard about Postecoglou coming into this Tottenham seat for a long time and what he was going to be able to bring and his philosophy, and it kind of seemed like we all thought it was going to fit with what Tottenham were looking to try and do and become. And now I don't really know where Tottenham go with the philosophy. I don't know what style of football that group of players would be best suited to play. Because it's not Postecoglou's, and it's not what we saw in terms of winning the Europa League final. They were able to do it and get it over the line, but that style of football isn't going to be the way that you do well in a Premier League season week in, week out. So I don't actually really know which manager would be best suited to come into Tottenham next year.
And if Daniel Levy's got the same opinion as you, Ollie, then why not say, well, we're not quite sure, we don't have the man available, let's just give Ange another year? Unless he's convinced...
Do you want another year?
I mean, unless he's convinced he can go out and get Simone Inzaghi. I mean, I think Marco Silva will be a fantastic fit for Tottenham. Him and Thomas Frank have both proven they can punch above their weight, I think, in the Premier League. I think both of those are a really safe choice. Inzaghi or Diego Simeone is like the proven winner outside of England. I mean, both of those have won massive trophies in Spain and Italy. Could you tempt one of them? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think you get a Simeone. I just don't.
Well, he doesn't speak English for a start. I've got a feeling Inzaghi does speak English.
Yeah, I think he's been able to conduct a few interviews in English in the past. So
okay, let me put it to you though, Ollie. If Daniel Levy sacks Ange, brings in a Marco Silva or a Thomas Frank, and they start the season poorly, the narrative then is should have kept Ange. Ange won stuff. He won the Europa League with her. Won the first European trophy since 1984. That'll be very hard to counter.
Yeah, but you keep Ange and you start the season badly, and the narrative is, well, we knew this was going to happen because this is what the Premier League form has been for the last few years. We've just been blinded by the UEFA Cup, the Europa League victory. So it's a two-sided coin, really, with the same result. Tottenham just can't afford to start the season badly next season. Let's put it that way. Neither Tottenham or Manchester United can afford to lose inside their first 4 or 5 games of next season, because otherwise people will go, well, yeah, it was crap last year and it looks like it's going to be crap this year. Both of these sides have dug themselves into such a horrible well in terms of the Premier League outlook that starting next season successfully, or what is deemed to be successfully, is going to be a really high bar indeed. Because 2 draws, 1 win and 2 losses in the first 5 games, and everyone goes, Jesus, it's continued.
Let's talk about Manchester United. It's as 2 men that grew up watching football in the 90s, watching the Man United demise is absolutely unbelievable. I actually think, what year are we? 2025, Ollie. I think there's 5 years to save Manchester United Football Club from here. if you look at Manchester United Football Club now in 2025, name one good thing about their trajectory or what they're about. The culture within the football club and the squad, rotten. Transfers over the last decade, disgraceful. They've wasted hundreds of millions of pounds. Even when you look at their current side, Rasmus Højlund for 60-odd million quid and Xerxes for 35. You just spent 100 million quid on two players that are quite obviously nowhere near good enough. That is a disgrace, whoever sanctioned those decisions. Manager, good-looking, nice, snappy dresser, ultimately completely unproven and has done absolutely nothing positive since joining the football club, really. Stadium, leaking, crumbling. But for Manchester United, they have one thing going in their favour. And that thing is a big thing. It's the fact that they are a legacy brand. And what I mean when I say legacy brand is they are a household name. And the name recognition of Manchester United is so big. I'm talking Trump, Oprah, London, Paris, like Apple, Google. Like that is where Manchester United are at. Like they are that brand. And that is not to be sniffed at. That is huge. It won't last forever, but it does exist now. And they need to lean on that legacy brand to such an extent over the next 5 years. The margin for error for Manchester United Football Club has been scribbled in to the millimetre. They cannot make a single mistake over the next 5 years. And I think there's 5 years to save Manchester United Football Club.
I think that legacy brand is actually, you're putting it as a nice positive. I think it could also be a massive negative because it's a brand, a business. 200 jobs have gone in the last 24 hours at Manchester United. Like, this isn't a team that's caring about production on the pitch as much as it cares about profit margins everywhere else. And this is the biggest fear that football supporters at Manchester United Football Club will have had, is we don't win this Europa League final, and rather than go, bloody hell, we need to do something to sort this out on the field, the reaction is, bloody hell, we need to keep cutting costs to make sure we're staying above water in the profit margin because it's a brand, because it's a business. And that's really tough, a really tough mentality to steer away from when you're looking at the books rather than looking at what you're bringing in terms of management and players on the field.
It's like being absolutely like really struggling for money, and then suddenly like you cancel your dentist appointment and your ChatGPT subscription and your private healthcare insurance. So you're sort of making these cuts that you think are going to save you money, and maybe they are, but they're also just sinking you further and further into the quicksand. I want to talk about Ruben Amorim in a minute, but I mean, how much is Alex Ferguson to blame for all this? You know, he never spoke out about the Glazers, Ollie, when he was in charge or subsequently, and they're now, without knowing the inner workings of the football club, all Manchester United fans and those sort of affiliated with the club that know stuff, they say it's just, you know, they're the main reason that Manchester United have plummeted the last decade. So, I mean, is Alex Ferguson to blame? Should he have taken some responsibility? He also picked Moyes, who didn't work, and started that kind of domino effect of bad managers. If it had picked Jurgen Klopp, could it have been different?
Yeah, but I mean, would anybody have picked Jurgen Klopp at that point? I mean, that was a long time. It's a few years between Moyes and the Klopp arrival at Liverpool. You know, Klopp was in his infancy. So that's an unfair judgment to make. And I genuinely think Sir Alex Ferguson picked Moyes because when he picked Moyes, we all said, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. You know, another legacy manager at Everton. Took them as far as he could get them on the budget that they have. If he can repeat what he's done at Everton with the bigger budget at Manchester United, great. All those cynics and people like myself who tend to be the more negative side, glass half empty, did say you don't want to be anybody who goes in after Sir Alex Ferguson because that's going to be the toughest job that you have. And we were kind of proven right. But I don't think you blame Sir Alex too much because Sir Alex had to deal with the Glazers and had to deal with, I wouldn't say transfer restrictions because United have done and still under Ferguson spent a lot of money, but he was able to still grind that out. And I think more than anything, this just continues to highlight how exceptional Sir Alex was and how probably important his voice and his legacy and his attitude in the club kept United still going because he was probably, more than anybody else, I can only imagine, demanding that he needed X, Y, and Z and was probably one of the few people still able to push against stuff because of who he was. Whereas any manager going in after that doesn't have the same gravitas to be able to pull strings and demand stuff in the same way. So I wouldn't necessarily blame Sir Alex really for any of it, except for the fact that maybe he had almost too much success with poor United sides towards the end of the time, that just masked more than anything else to the outside how bad things were getting with this United team, and then this United as a business and as a football club. But I think it's a long stretch to go all the way back to Sir Alex to say anything. I mean, we've had some great managers go through Manchester United in the last few years, and this is why I know you said we're going to come on to it in a moment. That's why I do not blame Ruben Amorim for any of this, because we said when he came in that early in the season that this is a wild job for him to have taken, but it's a job that so many football managers would love to have. And if United said it's now or never, it's United's fault for strong-arming him into it and basically setting him up to fail. The number of reports and articles that I've read in the last couple of days about how Amorim has to go because United don't look like they can play the style of football that he wants to be able to play with the squad that they have, and they're going to have to buy too many players, and they won't have the resources, nor will they have now the clout without Champions League football, without European football next season to be able to provide the players that he needs to be able to play that style of football. Well, firstly, he didn't have loads of money at Sporting Lisbon. He built a side at Sporting Lisbon, had the gravitas of Portuguese football to bring players in, but he was still able to find the players he needed to play good football and compete at a reasonably high level, beat Manchester City in the freaking Champions League this year. So let's not take that away from him. Secondly, if this squad wasn't capable of playing his style of football, the fault is on Manchester United for strong-arming him into taking that job in the first place. Because your manager that you select has to be able to deal with the tools at his disposal. I talk about this so much in American football. When you have a head coach who comes in and he plays a certain style of offense, and every player currently on that roster is designed to play a completely different style of offense in terms of their physical and capabilities. Manchester United have done the exact same thing with a football manager. That falls upon those that said we need to go and get Ruben Amorim. And not only that, said you have to come now or never. We said ages ago this season has to be a free hit for him. And he's pushed it quite a lot with how much of a free hit you get.
We don't actually mean free hit. Like, that's classic football chat. Like, it's a free hit, but it's not really a free hit because we're going to judge you accordingly.
Well, but I don't, because I genuinely felt like he came in at the worst time. Headlines have only got worse and worse for off-the-field antics in terms of Manchester United and what's been able to happen for that club. And it's been painfully obvious that Amorim's desired style of football isn't clicking with the players that he's got. But I don't blame Ruben Amorim for that. I blame the people that brought him in for that.
You're a generous man, Ollie. I think at this point, keeping Ruben Amorim is a massive gamble for Manchester United. Because he wants to play the 3-4-2-1, because that requires a very specific set of footballers, you are in a position where if you go out and you back Ruben Amorim and you buy those very specific set of footballers and it doesn't work, you're in a mess, an absolute mess. Now, he's obviously got this rigid philosophy which worked at Sporting and so far hasn't worked at all at Manchester United. I mean, he's done absolutely nothing good at Manchester United, Ruben Amorim. And I think in Ruben Amorim's post-match press conference, he gave the hierarchy at Manchester United an out. He said, if you want me to go, I will go and not ask for any compensation. He actually said that. Like, he said that. I don't know how that stands up legally, but like he said that. And, you know, considering Manchester United are trying to chop cash left, right, and centre, that to me was like, he's given you an out here, guys, for someone to be like, actually, we made a mistake. Ruben Amorim's not the right man. I just don't know what on earth he's done. And how can you trust a man that got bullied by Manchester United into taking that job when he obviously didn't want it and shouldn't have taken it? And he didn't really back himself. He's not deep down. Ruben Amorim does not back himself as a manager. Because if Ruben Amorim backed himself as a manager, he would have said, no, Manchester United, I'm not taking this toxic mess of a job right now. I'm going to go and win another title with Sporting. Come back to me if you want me in the summer. He's a young man. He would have been in demand. So I don't think you can trust a man whose decision-making is so terrible. Nothing I've seen him do is good at Manchester United. He's just, I don't know. I think you're being very generous to Ruben Amorim. But
but do you not think that that, and I wanted to come on to this, is him saying, I can't do this, I want out. But this is almost what he's thought the whole time going into it. I don't think he's wanted to take this job on at this point, and United forced him into taking it. And now he's clearly seen the daylight. That the one continuous component in all of these bad managerial appointments from Manchester United is Manchester United Football Club. That's the continuous thing. So it's not the managers that are clearly the problem, because, as I say, great and really competent football managers have run through that club over the last few years, and the one constant is Manchester United. So I don't see it being a Ruben Amorim problem. I see it as a Manchester United Football Club problem, and Amorim is just looking to get out at the earliest point, unlike being a Ten Hag clinging on to try his best to steer it somewhere positive. I think Ruben Amorim's just going, no, I need to get out now before my reputation is completely sullied. And the quicker he gets out, and if he offers things like a lack of compensation, that keeps his reputation intact, because that's him going, no, I knew I had to leave, because that is a dying animal right now. And Manchester United are they're a woolly mammoth. They were great. They were fantastic and best suited to be so successful in the environment they were in. And now they've been hunted by bigger and better game in the Premier League, and they are going to go extinct.
Alex Ferguson's win percentage was 60%, Ollie, right? In his, 1,500 games or whatever. After that, David Moyes had a win percentage of 53%. Then, in terms of full-time managers, Van Gaal's win percentage was also 53%. Mourinho's was up there at 58%. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was there at 54%. Couple of caretakers, interim. Ten Hag was 55%. Ruben Amorim is 36%. On 1 out of every 3 games, Ollie.
Yeah, it's rubbish. But it's
bad.
But it's if Manchester United blame Ruben Amorim, it's a bad craftsman blaming his tools. Basically.
So you'd keep him then?
Well, that I don't know. If you keep him, you have to back him. You have to back him.
So you have to go out and buy 5 centre-backs or 4 wing-backs.
But United's transfer... This is the thing. Like, you were listing off the kind of negatives about Manchester United. Stick into that, the lack of youth production coming out of United now as well. Class of 92 aside, there's always been the odd player who's been getting close to or touching on the ranks. I can't remember anybody coming out of United in the last few years where I've thought, ooh, okay.
Kobbie Mainoo, did he come through the ranks? Even he was on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah, but and I've not really heard anything positive about Kobbie Mainoo since
Well, he's not
very
going to
start
sign a
of the
contract.
season.
He's going to leave as well. Doesn't want to sign a contract. Understandably so. Why would you?
Yeah, why would you? But so you've got a team that is, it's a bit like Barca in that, everybody thinks about La Masia and the kind of all the great players that come out of there, but they still are churning out great and good youth players at Barca. It's not happening at Manchester United.
I think the Rasmus Højlund signing annoys me the most. You know why, Ollie? Because I actually watched a lot of Rasmus Højlund in 22, 23 when he played for Atalanta. And when Man United signed him for 62, I think, rising to potentially 70-odd, I told anyone that would listen to me that was a bad signing. And I know nothing, mate. I know nothing. I'm just a guy that watches football. Like, how can I know more than the Manchester United scouting department? That's not right. And I text a few people being like, that's a ridiculous price. He's not worth that. He scored, 9 goals in 32 games in Serie A. It was good, but I was like, there's no way he's worth that money. Like, how can I know more? How can I be more accurate than the entire Manchester United scouting department? That is concerning. They spent 100 million quid on Xerxes and Rasmus Højlund. That is bonkers, man.
Yeah, the Xerxes one as well was like, you've had 3/4 of a season where he was really good, and even that was not like, that was, I wouldn't even say really good in Serie A. He was good, but he wasn't, there was potential rather than anything completely concrete. And when he made that move straight away, I was like, no, just stay where you're improving and getting better. And again, it's the call of the big club, and you don't turn it down. The difference is that people need to put the phone down when United call. You just got to hang up. You got to hang up. You got to know for yourself. Like, treat him like a scam caller. Hi, is this Joshua Xerxes? Yeah, it's Manchester United. We were just wondering if we could tempt you to come to us. No, I'm really busy, actually. I've got a couple of things going on. Never asked for this call anyway, so if you can just leave me alone and take me off your list, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Is there any positive hope that you can see for United?
Well, I mean, the only thing is the legacy brand. The only thing, Ollie, that they could do now is, let's say, if their next 10 signings, 8 need to be smash hits, home runs, above expectation. They need to somehow dig out an £18 million signing that turns into an £80 million player. You know, they need to find. They need to find like they need to do what Liverpool did, really, which is you spend your 30 million on the Bobby Firminos and players like that, and suddenly they turn into be, you know, double the output you expected, or your Mo Salahs or something like that. I just, it all comes that you can talk about, you know, the stadium, you can talk about fan base, you can talk about culture, training, manager. It always comes down to the footballers and the transfer policy. And if Manchester United's next 10 signings, they can get 8 or 9 that are just absolutely incredible bits of scouting, then they can do it. But how often does that happen, mate? Like, never. I mean, even looking at Tottenham's team on Wednesday night, mate, it's like Dominic Solanke was 60 million quid. He's a good player. But 60 million quid. Richarlison loved him at Everton. How much do they spend on him? Like, there's so many Premier League clubs just splash out 40, 50, 60 million on average footballers, man. But
that's the expectation, because that's what happens when you're the most financially cloutable league in the world, is that prices will just keep rising. You know, it always blew my mind that Juventus would be able to bring in these players on free transfers every few years, that you'd be like, oh, God, that'd be a big number for a Premier League side if they wanted to bring him in. But the lure of Juventus, then, because it was a free transfer, it'd be the wages that kind of offset the transfer money, so Juve would pay him a hefty amount. But you take getting the right player in and giving them a wage than spending a load of money on an absolute bust, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I mean, the other thing is, or just hope for a class of 92. You know, you just pray that that's coming through.
They come round every so often, don't they? I mean, every couple of years you get one of them. I mean, I don't know how United are not in a relegation fight next season, to be honest.
Because they're better than 16th, mate.
But are they?
Yes, they are.
But okay, so who comes into United and saves them? Because you're saying Ruben Amorim should go. So who's the manager to come into Manchester United to start to turn the ship around?
Well, you know what I think they should do. Man United need to get down on their hands and knees, and they need to beg, and I mean beg, Diego Simeone to take charge of Manchester United Football Club, because there is your winner, there is your cult leader, there is your rally every single person connected with the football club. You need to give Diego Simeone 4 or 5 hours of private English tuition every single day this summer. You need to pay Atletico Madrid whatever it takes, and you need to get that madman on the touchline at Old Trafford. You need to get someone who's just going to scream in the face of everyone, who's going to grab the football club by the scruff of its throat. Man United are beyond the point of needing a good coach, a good coach. They're beyond the point of a Ruben Amorim. Oh, isn't he good in press conferences? I like what jumper he's wearing today. They're beyond that. They need a cult leader. They need an actual cult leader. And your Marco Silvas and your Thomas Franks or your Southgates or your Glasners or no. That none of them are going to fix Manchester United Football Club. They need Diego Simeone, and they need him at the start of next season in place.
But a cult leader needs followers. And I don't think you've got players at Manchester United that will follow the Simeone cult, because it takes what Simeone's done at Atletico Madrid to be able to be that cult leader. And then you take in the communication potential problems of being a guy that doesn't speak English. And you take into the fact that isn't Simeone just young Mourinho?
What's wrong?
In terms,
what do you mean?
No,
Ollie, that's fantastic.
No, but
young
it didn't
Mourinho,
work. It didn't work. He won a Europa League title, but it all ended in tears, as it always does with these black managers at Manchester United. And if you're Diego Simeone, I'm never looking at Manchester United over Atleti. Never. Not in a million years.
He's done it in Madrid. He's done it with Atletico Madrid. He's done it. And Manchester United it's such a poison chalice now that the man that does turn that round, and it will happen in the fullness of history, in the fullness of time, someone will turn that round. The man that does that gets so much respect. Like the man that can deliver a league title or a Champions League to Manchester United after Alex Ferguson, after these 10 managers they've had. And why not Diego Simeone?
I don't think United get close to competing for a league title in 5 years. Not unless there is a change in ownership.
Yeah.
There's not a hope
They need a
in
Gulf
hell.
state. They need a cult leader in a Gulf state. So, so that's all you need, Manchester United. You should be fine, mate. I'm sure.
Or a class of 92.
They need to be bought by Qatar. They need to be bought by Qatar. They need to have a new class of 92, and they need like a once-in-a-generation managerial talent. So if you can sort those three things, then Man United will be fixed. No problem.
Yeah,
right, Ollie. You started the pod. You started pre-pod ranting about Jamie Carragher. Do you want to get off your chest?
No, we've touched on it. It's Carragher talking about how it was all Ruben Amorim's fault at Manchester United, and it was just so naive, the article, in terms of not looking at bigger picture in terms of what's happening with Ruben Amorim behind the scenes. So I kind of made my point that was dismissing everything that Jamie Carragher was saying. And it just seems weird to have an ex-Liverpool player leaning in and starts... I know he's a pundit and obviously has his opinions on the game and everything, gets paid to write his columns, but like to be... It would have more credence if it was written by a Gary Neville saying that like Amorim needs to go because X, Y, and Z, and I don't think it's enough. Whereas with Carragher, I still always find he's just jumping on the kind of, where can I find a way to needle people, because that's what they want.
Welcome to the world,
broadcasters. Yeah, broadcasters and particularly writing paper columns. So yeah, just the fallout from this Europa League final has been unreal.
Do you not, just to defend Jamie Carragher, do you not think, first of all, that's what he's paid to do? Secondly, do you not think... As he was part of like a fallen legacy in Liverpool, right? You know, after Liverpool's dominance in the 70s and 80s, he was part of that 90s and early noughties, the fallen brand, the fallen legacy. So he actually does have an insight into what it's like for this fallen giant to try to turn itself around. So do you not think there's an insight there that he could have? Whereas Gary Neville's he has no concept of not being successful, so it's very difficult for him to relate to what's going on at Manchester United.
Not necessarily, because I think you look through the years with Liverpool Football Club, there's still been far more hope for success when you look at managerial appointments. The only one that really raised eyebrows and was, in hindsight, a poor appointment, I think, was Roy Hodgson. Everything else over the last decade had actually been pretty decent managers that have been able to produce some level of success with that club. Klopp has taken them to that extra level. What he's done is a fantastic achievement, and what Liverpool are now hasn't necessarily been as dramatic a step up, though, as what United would be now, and if they had a manager in 4 years' time that had them competing for Champions League and Premier Leagues. That's how far United have fallen more than anything else. And that is why I think they will be a bottom half of the table side next season, unless things are able to change dramatically. And the saving grace for them might be the saving grace that we have with the relegated sides going down this year, is that coming up from the Championship and staying up is so difficult, and United have the financial clout to, you would hope, ensure that they don't get involved in this sort of lowest of the low in the Premier League without being in the bottom three again. But it's hard to see a turnaround that's going to be that dramatic at this point.
Just finally on Manchester United, I mean, I thought Jamie Carragher did make an interesting point that Man United have won, won their 20 league titles, and Alex Ferguson won 13 of those, right? And Matt Busby won 5 of those. So 18 of those league titles have actually been won by 2 managers, and they've had like nearly 30 managers in their history. It's quite weighted, that. It's very different if you look at, Liverpool or Arsenal, Liverpool's the managers that have won titles with Liverpool. It's way more consistent through the years. So it's something to look at when you look at the history of Manchester United. 18 of those 20 titles are won by 2 managers, and bearing in mind the first manager was like 1889 or whatever.
But that's why the taking over from Ferguson was always going to be so tough, and that's why when Sir Alex left, there was this huge potential of the eras of dominance for stopping, because it's not even so heavily weighted with just 2 managers. It's heavily weighted in Sir Alex's favour. Over 50% of them coming from him. And that's why you should never underestimate how good that spell was for Manchester United.
Only Only 3 permanent managers in the history of Manchester United have a worse win percentage than Ruben Amorim on 36%.
Wouldn't be able to name.
Well, Jack Robson, who ended in 1921, Lal Hilditch, who ended in 1927, and Herbert Bamlet, who ended in 1931. I mean, Ollie, Ruben, bro.
But again, I just blame the people that appointed him and bullied him into it.
Right. Let's wrap up, Ollie. Any other business? Because we're not going to pod again now for a couple of weeks, I believe.
Yeah, we got the Monaco Grand Prix this weekend, which is obviously something to just keep your eye out on. Qualifying, as always, in Monaco is the biggest day on Saturday rather than the race itself, because unless we get wet weather and safety cars, then it's generally a procession on the tight streets of Monaco. So qualifying will be the way to go. If Piastri or Norris find pole, should be a McLaren victory. We'll see if that happens with Max Verstappen off his victory last time out. I'm trying to think of any other business. Congratulations to Southend United in terms of booking their spot against Oldham Athletic in the National League promotion final, that we have to call it, rather than a playoff final as well. And we've got the playoff final this weekend, haven't we? Sheffield United against Sunderland.
Yes. And also, don't let us finish this pod without talking about our favourite man, Ivan Toney, who's getting an England recall. What do we think about that?
Deserves it, doesn't he? He's scoring goals. England, we touched on this a few weeks back. He's scoring goals. England lack other options for centre forwards. And why not go with the guy with the hot hand, so to speak? Oh, this is something I wanted to ask you. So Harry Kane obviously finally gets his Bundesliga title with Bayern Munich, finally gets a trophy. Do you think Harry Kane wishes a little bit that he was part of that Tottenham side that won a Europa League, as opposed to his first trophy coming with Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, which, let's face it, is the expectation?
A little bit, Ollie. I think his entire body and mind will know that he should have stayed at Tottenham to win the Europa League with them. Ollie, Bayern Munich have won 12 of the last 13 Bundesliga titles. It's not nothing, but it's pretty close to nothing. You may as well have gone to Celtic. I mean, winning a title with Bayern Munich, I'm sorry, it's just not that impressive. They are so dominant in German football, it's embarrassing to the rest of the German clubs. And Harry Kane, he should have stayed at Tottenham. A Europa League would have meant 100 times more to him than that title with Bayern Munich. And also, he'd be way higher up the Premier League goal-scoring charts. He'd be breathing down Shearer's neck, you know, which is another individual accolade that he wants. So, yeah, look, life's a lot about decisions. And is it a bad decision to go to Bayern Munich? No, because he'll probably win more silverware next season. But he could have been part of the greatest day in modern history for Tottenham Hotspur. And yes, I think he regrets it.
I wanted that to be the rant from you, by the way. So that was an easy question to ask. But also, doesn't it just make you think, again, you know, when you see footballers making decisions, like Harry Kane went to Bayern Munich because it was the easy way to go and get trophies. 100%. Like, he wanted trophies, he wanted silverwares to add to the accolades of being a great goal scorer and considered arguably the best Tottenham striker of all time. But it will never outweigh doing it with the side that you created that name with and came all the way through. And look, Trent Alexander-Arnold is very lucky in that he's done it all now with Liverpool and gets to go. Harry Kane will look at Trent Alexander-Arnold and wish that he had that night and to have the same nights that Trent Alexander had with Liverpool, with Tottenham. And does that make Heung-min Son more of a club legend than Harry Kane? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. 100%. He's more of a club legend, yeah.
Best video, by the way, from the Europa League is Heung-min Son at the front of the Tottenham Hotspur bus as they're driving out of the city, just papping the horn on the bus. Just He's loving it. I love the fact that he was so happy. Great.
Yeah, Tottenham parade today and they play on Sunday, which is funny. Like, imagine you have a massive, probably all-nighter on the Wednesday night, back in London, parade on the Friday, all-nighter tonight, and somehow they got to play on the final day of the season. I mean, yeah.
Anybody
Ollie,
in that side gives a shit about the Premier League final day of the season. Excuse me. I mean,
Ange basically said it in his post-match, didn't he? Yeah. Ollie, next week you're a man on the road. You are a man on the road. You're probably golfing somewhere in the Highlands and then you're off to Italy. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. I'm golfing at St Andrews actually from Sunday, and then off to Sardinia for a triathlon. So
okay, so if
we've got a bit of a break.
All right, so we'll try and squeeze in a pod maybe next Saturday if Ollie's got 10 minutes to post Champions League final. If not, Ollie will do the week after. Triathlon in Sardinia. So the triathlon is in Sardinia, is it?
Yeah.
It's pretty warm for a triathlon.
Yeah, and it's like a 11:30 in the morning start for the first race, so it's going to be toasty for the second one as well. The men's race is going to be very tough, but yeah, it should be good. Beth Potter finished second in Yokohama. She's had 2 Olympic bronzes. She's kind of the big British hope going into the women's race. No Alex Yee, no Hayden Wilder on the starting list at the moment. We're the 2 big names really in men's triathlon. So Hayden Wilder actually broke his ribs in Japan about 3 weeks ago. So he's definitely not going to make it to the start line, unfortunately. So
Ollie,
kind of opens things up.
let us in behind the curtain, because commentating on a triathlon, are you at the finish line? Or because you can't be everywhere, so where are you? And do you have cameras how does it work? Like, what's the setup?
Yeah, so we're at the finish line. So we're on site down by the finish line, and we have the feed that everybody else is getting basically, and then we have our start list timers that are tracking every single athlete as we go around. We get kind of a little privy into that information, so we get a slightly faster update on the stats and timings as the riders go through. But it's only a few seconds basically, so we can react to them what comes up on screen. It's great fun.
And you're
really
the co-commentator, right? So you're kind of calling the action, then you're handing over to an expert to dissect exactly why things are happening and what that means.
Yeah. Helen Jenkins will be alongside me, former Olympic athlete, superb triathlete as well in her day, and get on really well with Helen. She's a lovely lady from South Wales, and she provides all the insight into what the athletes will kind of be thinking, who will be looking to push where and when, and at what various points in the race. And I'll do the nuts and bolts of the broadcast, and it should be a pretty good weekend in Sardinia.
Nice hotel. You got a few hours off to hit the pool or anything?
No, I mean, because I'm in Scotland, we land on Thursday. Friday will be last bits of prep, and then TV broadcast kind of planning and stuff. And then Saturday morning will be a kind of get off to the commentary point 2 hours before the race, get sorted, get locked in, get the race on, do the races. Saturday evening's the one. Nice glass of Italian red, nice bit of Italian pasta maybe, and that'll be the chill out. And then it's a 4 a.m. start Sunday to come home. So.
Oof, first flight of the day. I'll never forget, if anyone wants to know how much of a machine Ollie Wilson is, I think we're going back to 2020. Was it 2023 or 2024? I was in Argentina, and Ollie had been in Tokyo for like the weekend, like a few days before. Was this last year?
2 years ago,
2 years ago. So Ollie had done a weekend's work in Tokyo, which is obviously bloody far away, then flew back to London for like a day, then flew out to Argentina. I mean, by this stage, your time zones, sleeping patterns all over the place. Did a week of broadcasting in Argentina, and then on the Friday night, I remember Ollie, he was on the beers and the Marlboro Reds. So, that is, if anyone wants to know what an absolute machine Ollie Wilson is, I remember being staggered at the 10 days that man lives in that specific. Maybe you peaked then, Ollie.
No, the worst one was doing the full week of RG, and I think it was 2 weeks back to back, then flying on the Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, landing Sunday morning, and going from Heathrow Airport on a train up through London, straight up to Leeds, doing an Italian Serie A game, and then getting the train from Leeds back home to get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
That was right. We're rambling. So that's None Other Sports Pod first bonus pod 46. Yeah, there we go.
Say it.